And do your kids like all? How many kids do you have?
Oh, well, I'm working on number 9.
Congratulations.
When Mel Gibson welcomed his 9th child at 61 years old, the world couldn't help but wonder about the sprawling family he'd built across decades. But while the Hollywood icon's career has been dissected endlessly, his children have largely remained in the shadows until now. From courtroom battles to surprise career moves, from addiction struggles to quiet family lives, each of Gibson's 9 kids has carved out a vastly different path. Some have followed him into the spotlight, others have deliberately avoided it, and a few have stories that might genuinely shock you. Here's what really happened to Mel Gibson's children and where they are today. Willie Gibson, the quiet life that echoes a family choice. It's a sunny day in November 2017, and Los Angeles paparazzi swarm the red carpet for the premiere of Daddy's Home 2. Among the crowd, a familiar face slips in almost unnoticed. It's William Gibson, Willie, Mel's 4th son, making one of his rare public appearances. But here's where it gets intriguing. Willie hasn't been linked to any major scandals or arrests. Instead, he's chosen a path of deliberate privacy, steering clear of the demons that plagued his father while building a life away from the headlines. Remember Mel's infamous 2006 DUI arrest? The anti-Semitic rant that went viral? Willie was 21 then, watching his father's public meltdown from the sidelines. Born in September 1985, Willie grew up during Mel's peak Hollywood years. He had everything money could buy, but struggled with something money couldn't fix. Or, so insiders suggest, whispering about the quiet pressures of the Gibson legacy without any confirmed battles. Friends close to the family have stayed silent on specifics, but there's no record of legal troubles or public relapses. After that 2017 premiere, Willie faded back into obscurity. He skipped the spotlight entirely, focusing on personal matters out of view. Court records show no incidents, no obligations unmet. But the real question everyone wanted answered was simpler. Would he embrace the cycle of fame his father had navigated? Mel reportedly stays connected to all his kids, drawing on his own experiences with the industry. Insiders suggest father and son share low-key moments, discussing family bonds and the weight of the name without fanfare. It seems a subtle turning point. Today, Willie maintains an almost invisible profile. There haven't been any tabloid stories, no leaked details of drama. The silence suggests stability, but without confirmation, we can only speculate. Willie's story is a reminder that fame and fortune don't immunize families from scrutiny. They sometimes inspire a full retreat. At 41 years old, he's either living proof that privacy is possible, or he's still navigating a world the public can't see. Christian Gibson, the twin who faced his father's shadow, head-on. Here's something unsettling. Try Googling Christian Gibson. Go ahead, search every social media platform, every photo database, every celebrity offspring website. You'll find scraps from the last couple of decades, but mostly professional credits rather than personal drama. For someone born into Hollywood royalty in June 1982, this level of low-key existence seems deliberate. Christian and his twin brother Edward were raised primarily in Australia, far from the Hollywood machine. But while Edward runs a furniture business crafting pieces from reclaimed wood, Christian dipped into the industry, yet managed to stay mostly under the radar. No flashy Facebook, no viral Instagram, no high-profile LinkedIn boasts, no constant paparazzi chases, no endless sightings. Few industry insiders spilling details. It's like he decided at some point that being Mel Gibson's son came with too much baggage, and he just dialed it back. The last major public ripple? Back in 2005, while at the University of Colorado. Boulder police pulled him over for erratic driving in February that year. The driver steps out, and officers note the intoxication. Christian faced a DUI charge, spending hours in jail, and confronting the same alcohol issues that would hit his father hard just a year later. He was 22 then, a budding actor dealing with college life and family legacy. After the arrest, Christian shifted gears. He entered the film world behind the camera, working as an operator on projects like his dad's Hacksaw Ridge and Daddy's Home 2. Court records show he handled the legal side, but the deeper story, any ongoing struggles, remains private. Insiders hint he drew from Mel's own recovery, attending sessions or having tough talks, though nothing's confirmed by major sources. What makes Christian's low profile fascinating is how intentional it feels. This isn't someone who chased fame and retreated. This is someone who saw what the spotlight did to his family and chose a supporting role instead. Tech-savvy camera work, splitting time between LA and Mexico City, enjoying outdoor pursuits. Is he thriving? Is he content? Does he regret staying behind the scenes? Or does he wake up every day grateful he navigated it his way? We get glimpses from credits and family mentions, but the full picture stays his own. And maybe that's exactly how Christian wants it. At 43 years old, he's the Gibson child who mastered the balance game. But at what cost? Milo Gibson, the son who looks exactly like young Mel, but can't escape the comparison. Stand Milo Gibson next to a photo of his father from Mad Max or Lethal Weapon, and it's genuinely shocking. Same piercing blue eyes, same jawline, same intensity. Born in November 1990, Milo is essentially a time machine back to peak Mel Gibson. But here's the problem with looking exactly like one of Hollywood's most famous faces. Everyone expects you to be him. Milo's acting career started with his father's 2016 film Hacksaw Ridge. Smart move, right? Get your big break in an Oscar-nominated war epic directed by your dad. Except every review mentioned it, every interview asked about it. Every audition carried the weight of that resemblance and that connection. Since then, Milo's been grinding through action films, All the Devil's Men, Breaking and Exiting, Under the Stadium Lights. Decent movies, solid performances, but nothing that's broken him out of his father's shadow. Critics keep waiting for him to explode with Mel's signature intensity, but Milo's style is different. More controlled, less raw, deliberately restrained. In interviews, you can hear the frustration. Milo talks about wanting to honor his father's legacy while creating his own identity. But how do you do that when you literally have your father's face? Every casting director sees young Mel Gibson walking through the door. Every audience member makes the comparison before he speaks his first line. The bigger question, does looking like Mel Gibson help or hurt in modern Hollywood? His father's name carries baggage now. The controversies, the outbursts, the scandals. Milo's trying to build a career in an industry that's both fascinated by his father's legacy and deeply uncomfortable with it. At 35, Milo's at a crossroads. He's proven he can act, proven he's not just coasting on his name, but he hasn't had that breakout role that makes people forget about Mel and see Milo. His recent projects suggest he's still searching for it, still grinding, still trying to step out of a shadow that might be impossible to escape. Friends in the industry say Milo's talented and hardworking, but talent isn't always enough when you're competing with your father's ghost. The real question is whether Hollywood will ever let him be Milo Gibson, or if he'll always be Mel Gibson's son who looks just like him. Hannah Gibson, the daughter who rejected Hollywood for 6 kids and a blues guitarist. Hannah was supposed to be Hollywood royalty. Born in November 1980, she was Mel Gibson's firstborn, his golden child during his Mad Max and Lethal Weapon years. She even appeared in The Patriot in 2000, and everyone assumed she'd follow the family business. Instead, she married Kenny Wayne Shepherd, a blues guitarist, when she was 26 years old and promptly disappeared from Hollywood entirely. But here's what makes Hannah's story compelling. She didn't just leave Hollywood, she went in the complete opposite direction. 6 children. A quiet life, often linked to Louisiana roots through her husband, though the family has ties elsewhere. No constant social media spotlight on her personal life, though she occasionally shares glimpses as a mother, wife, and hypnobirth educator with a passion for hoop dancing. She chose the traditional, faith-centered life her father publicly preached, but privately struggled to maintain. Think about the timing. Hannah got married in September 2006, right as Mel was solidifying his conservative Catholic values post The Passion of the Christ. While her father was making films with deep messages and talking about family values, Hannah was actually living them. No scandals, no controversies, just raising kids far from the Hollywood chaos. There's an irony here that's hard to ignore. Mel Gibson's personal life has been a train wreck of divorces, custody battles, and leaked audio tapes. Hannah watched it all, building the stable family her father couldn't fully hold together. She occasionally appears in Kenny's World, or at family moments, but she's carefully kept her 6 children completely out of the public eye. Now in her mid-40s, Hannah represents a path most celebrity children don't take: complete rejection of fame. She had the connections, the resources, the last name to build an entertainment career, including behind-the-scenes work on some of her dad's projects. She chose diapers and school runs instead. No judgment, but it's fascinating. Did she see what Hollywood did to her father and decide it wasn't worth it? Did she genuinely prefer domestic life? Or was it something else? Kenny Wayne Shepherd's successful music career means Hannah understands the demands of fame without needing to pursue it herself. She's the wife of someone famous, which gives her just enough distance to be left alone while staying connected to that world, if she ever wanted back in. She doesn't want back in. Nearly 20 years after her wedding, Hannah's made that abundantly clear. The daughter who could have been a star chose to be a mother instead, and she's never looked back. Edward Gibson, the twin who stayed visible but never committed. Remember Christian, the twin who leaned into camera work? Edward is his opposite, visible but vague, present but mysterious, engaged with family but never fully committed to the spotlight. Born alongside Christian in June 1982, Edward has spent 4 decades hovering at the edges of his father's world. He shows up at family events, occasionally photographed in passing, mentioned in articles about the Gibson clan. But what does Edward actually do? That's where it gets interesting. Unlike Milo, who's clearly an actor, or Hannah, who clearly chose family life, Edward exists in this gray area. There are no major credits or public pursuits in film production. Instead, he's built a business called Natural Edge, crafting furniture and art from reclaimed wood slabs, often imported from Fiji, creative, hands-on, far from Hollywood. The few mentions of Edward describe him as artistic and thoughtful, interested in design rather than the arts of the screen. But there's no IMDb page full of credits, no high-profile interviews explaining his choices. He's managed to be visible without revealing much. What makes Edward's path so unusual is how perfectly he's balanced it. He gets to enjoy family connections and the perks of the Gibson name, but he carries none of the pressure Milo faces as an actor. He's close enough to support family, distant enough to avoid scrutiny. It's almost strategic. Currently in his early 40s and reportedly based in California with business ties, Edward continues his pattern of selective visibility. He'll surface when it matters, family events, then focus on his own world. He's found a middle ground between Christian's industry involvement and full retreat, and he seems perfectly content there. Lewis Gibson, the film school graduate who's too cool for Hollywood. Lewis Gibson went to film school. Specifically, he earned his BFA in film production from Chapman University, one of the respected programs in the country. He learned the technical and creative side of filmmaking, got a legitimate education in his father's industry. Then he did something deliberate. He used it on his own terms, not chasing big Hollywood breaks. Born in June 1988, Lewis had every advantage. His father's an Oscar-winning director and producer. His brother Milo's an actor. He has connections most film school graduates would kill for. But instead of leveraging the Gibson name for studio jobs or blockbusters, Lewis has focused on writing and directing independent projects, including horror and narrative films like Happy Hunting and Manifest West. often collaborating within indie circles. Sound familiar? It's almost like Lewis saw the pressures of fame and decided he wanted to create without the constant comparisons. People who've worked with Louis describe him as genuinely passionate about storytelling, particularly in meaningful, genre-driven projects, rather than commercial giants. This aligns with his father's recent work, films with messages beyond pure entertainment. But here's what makes Lewis intriguing. He's doing it all relatively quietly. Minimal personal social media fanfare, rare public appearances tied to his own work, no endless interviews explaining his artistic vision. He shows up for his projects, never red carpets for clout. He's building a career based on merit and creativity, which is admirable in an industry built on networking. Lewis is now in his mid-30s, working on independent film projects in California, sometimes involving family like his brother Milo. The question everyone in his life must ask: when does the independent approach lead to bigger recognition? When does he decide to amplify his work further? Or maybe that's not the point. Maybe Lewis is perfectly happy making films on his scale, where success is measured by creative control rather than box office. There's something almost rebellious about Lewis's path. In an industry where everyone's fighting for attention, he's selectively pursuing his own voice. Thomas Gibson, the son nobody talks about. Thomas Gibson was born in April 1999, which means he grew up during the worst period of his father's public life. He was 10 when his parents' marriage finally ended after 26 years in 2009. A child when the custody battle with Oksana Grigorieva dominated headlines shortly after. And somehow through all of that chaos, Thomas has remained almost completely invisible. There's no public information about where Thomas went to college, or if he went at all. No confirmed career? No social media presence worth mentioning. The few times he's been photographed, it's been rare and low-key, mostly as a child or in passing family contexts, never seeking attention. This level of privacy for someone in their mid-20s is genuinely unusual. Most people Thomas's age have digital footprints. Something. Thomas has essentially none of it. Either he's incredibly disciplined about privacy, or he's chosen to keep everything off the grid. What makes Thomas's invisibility interesting is what it suggests. Unlike Hannah, who stayed close to Mel while rejecting Hollywood, or Milo, who embraced his father's career, Thomas seems to have just stepped away. No public support at premieres, no father-son photos in recent years, no mentions in Mel's rare interviews about fatherhood. Insiders suggest he's pursuing work completely unrelated to entertainment. Something normal, grounded, that lets him be Thomas Gibson, individual person, not Thomas Gibson, Mel's son. At 26 years old, Thomas is building a career, forming relationships, making choices that define his future somewhere, somehow, and absolutely nobody knows where or how. In the Gibson family, that might actually be the biggest success story of all. Lucia Gibson, born into a war zone. Lucia's birth in October 2009 should have been joyful. Instead, she entered a world of custody battles, restraining orders, and leaked audio recordings that exposed her father at his absolute worst. Her mother is Oksana Grigorieva, Mel's girlfriend after his divorce from Robin Moore. Their relationship imploded spectacularly in 2010 when Oksana filed for a restraining order, claiming domestic violence. The audio tapes that surfaced were brutal. Mel screaming, making threats, saying things that couldn't be taken back. Lucia was just months old, and already her existence was tabloid fodder. Lawyers argued over custody arrangements. Judges reviewed evidence. The media circus around her father, already intense, reached new levels of chaos. It was the kind of public meltdown that destroys careers and damages children. But here's what's surprising. Both Mel and Oksana seem to have learned from that disaster. Unlike some celebrity custody battles that drag on for years, Mel and Oksana eventually settled into a quieter arrangement with joint legal custody. They stopped using Lucia as ammunition against each other. They focused on her well-being rather than their hatred for each other. Now 16, Lucia attends private school and is reportedly thriving. Her mother occasionally shares vague artistic updates like drawings or dance glimpses, suggesting Lucia has interests in music and the arts. Despite the horrific circumstances of her parents' split, Lucia hasn't become a weapon or a tragedy. She's being allowed to be a kid, to have a childhood that isn't defined by her parents' worst moments. At 16 years old, Lucia is old enough to have her own thoughts about everything that happened, but young enough that her story is still being written. Lars Gerard Gibson, the 8-year-old with a 36-year age gap. Lars Gerard Gibson was born in January 2017 when his father was 60 years old. His mother, Rosalind Ross, is a screenwriter and former equestrian, young enough to be Mel's daughter herself, and his oldest sibling, Hannah, is old enough to be his mother. Let that sink in. Lars is growing up in a family where his siblings span 4 decades. At 8 years old, Lars is too young for any real story, but his existence raises fascinating questions about what it means to be a Gibson in 2025 versus 1980. When Hannah was 8, Mel is a controversial figure trying to rebuild a damaged legacy, having quietly separated from Rosalind after 9 years together while prioritizing co-parenting. Lars will grow up with the internet. He'll be able to Google his father and find everything: the good, the bad, the absolutely brutal. He'll have half-siblings who remember when Mel was just an actor, not a scandal. He'll have a perspective on his father that none of the other children could have because he'll only know older, supposedly wiser Mel. The photos that exist of Lars show him at family gatherings or rare outings, like a 2024 premiere, surrounded by half-siblings who are adults with children of their own. What are your thoughts about Mel Gibson's children? Share with us in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. For more interesting stories like this, be sure to click on the next video that pops up on your screen. You never know what you'll discover next.